So my learning was very, very dependent on teacher. Like I had crappy math teachers like all early high school, and I was barely passing. I had one good teacher, and it clicked, and I was like, I'm not bad at maths. I just didn't have a teacher who knew how to accommodate to explain maths to me. And the same worked for English. Like my year 12 year, my English teacher was great, but then there was another English teacher, and the way he'd explain things was like, wow, he'd inspire passion in explaining. It wasn't just about the content. And I was like, okay, you actually make me love English more than I did.
Yeah.
And then, it translated. And that's kind of the goal, at least at FCT, is that we want to sort of instill passion instead of knowledge.
In 1837, Horace Mann created the education system, a system at the time designed to pump out factory workers and professors. The same system that is still being used today in the 21st century. Now, Mann's system is backfiring. We are being moulded by the same industrial system that has existed for close to 200 years. That system delivers us into a digital economy that has no need of our outdated skills. This isn't our teachers' fault. This isn't the government's fault. This is due to a rapidly changing world full of technology and unforeseen circumstances. And us Gen Zs are caught in the middle. Welcome to the Driven Young podcast, the podcast for stressed, overwhelmed young Australians, teaching you practical life skills you can implement now to set yourself up in life. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the Driven Young podcast. Today I'm joined by an amazing young woman who reached out to me on Instagram. She is only 18 years old and is crushing it, showing all the qualities I talk about and teach on this show. Meerae Mulla is currently studying a business degree at University of Sydney and running an online tutoring company who aim to revolutionise the way tuition occurs. In this episode, we discuss both of our schooling experiences in detail, what worked and what didn't, how schools focused on the wrong things and what we should be learning instead. We talk about university life and what you need to do to prepare yourself for a job. We get into work ethic and so much more. I have a lot of respect for Meerae. She reached out to me about coming on the show and really impressed me. I do my show in person and it can be very confronting sitting in front of a microphone with cameras pointing at you, especially for someone so young. Definitely stick around for this episode. I feel like it really picks up and we get into flow about 15 to 20 minutes in. And if you are a fan of the show, I know you will enjoy this content a lot. As per usual, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I answer all of my DMs and I love chatting with you guys. Please message Meerae if you enjoy this episode and if you have any questions for her. And if you want to join our Facebook group, head over to www.drivenyoung.com/group. That's www.drivenyoung.com/group. Now, over to Meerae. Meerae, welcome so much to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really excited to talk about your company and what you've been up to for the past year with COVID and everything.
Yep.
But before you get into that, I'd love to dive deep into your story. Obviously, how old are you, sorry?
I'm 18.
You're 18. So
yep.
I often ask, what did you do after high school? And that was only a year ago for you.
Yeah.
So maybe how was high school for you? What did you do after high school? And what are you currently up to, even though it's been a short period of time?
Okay. Alright. Yeah. So I went to an all-girls, super religious type high school. So it was kind of it was private independent, I forgot how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of okay, so this is what you do. We kind of came into high school and it was your first year 7 task was you're writing an essay and you're doing hardcore maths, and it's this is what you're doing, this is the way to go. And it was just kind of that every year. I remember my first year 7 test being crazy stressed. The stress that you should have for your HC, I was kind of having in year 7.
In year 7 when it doesn't even matter.
And when it doesn't even matter. And it kind of every year I sort of come in and be I'm not going to care. I'm not going to stress this year. They're just exams and they don't count to my HC. And I would come into exams and I would stress about religion exams. You shouldn't be stressing about religion. And I'd be oh my God, do I remember this? And it's not something to really stress about. And I kind of came to HC and you kind of burnt out from stress already. And you kind of walk in, you're well, now it counts. And now I need to really put in the hard yards and sort of work and do something. And we had a new syllabus. We were the first year of it. So on top of already it being a hard year, you sort of had the first year, you have no past papers for English and you had nothing, and you're kind of oh, well, that's fun. And the teachers didn't really even know what was going on. So you couldn't get a tutor that knew what was going on because the teachers didn't know. So who were you really gonna ask for help in that sense? And that was kind of the whole HC, and it kind of it sucked because you would get a tutor and they'd be and you'd be how would I do this? And they'd be oh, that's new, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's a new curriculum.
And you're well, I need to know how to do that. And then the teachers would go to seminars every second week to kind of learn what was even going on because we really didn't know. And you know, they'd come in, they'd be like, well, the whole state doesn't know what's going on. Here's kind of what's happening. Well, have fun. And we're like, well, we don't know what we're doing. And like, I remember like they introduced like discursive essays for the first time in our year, and it's something that like we'd never heard of. And they were like, well, here you can use personal pronouns, and you don't need to be formal, and you don't need techniques. And it like just was the total opposite of what we'd been taught, you know, since year 7. It's like, well, how do you expect us to sort of be conversational when you've taught us, you know, you can't use I or my or, and then they kind of like flipped us over on our heads in like the last year when it really matters. And that was really, really stressful. And I think that's what I kind of realized. I was like, okay, well, I've done it now, and I've done really well in it, like, luckily, because, you know, you put so many hours in. And I was like, I'm going to get together with a bunch of other people who've done just as well as me, if not better. And we're going to start, and we're going to create, like, you know, this community where we can help kids who are going through it so that they don't need to feel the same stress that we're sort of going through. Like, you don't want that extra sort of, you know, here's your HC, it's stressful enough, and then, you know, here's a new syllabus, you have one past paper to learn from. Well, how about we give you something to alleviate that stress, and you can have someone that has actually learnt it and knows what's going on to actually guide you through the year. And that's what we did this year, pretty much.
And that was, I guess, the catalyst, and that's kind of the reasoning that you started your company, which is for First Choice Tutoring.
Yep.
And it's an online tutoring company.
Yep.
And so the reason you started this, by the sounds of it, is because there's a new curriculum. You couldn't find any tutors yourself. The teachers barely knew what was kind of going on. So you thought, all right, let's try solve this problem. If not for me, at least for the next generations that are, you know, or the next year groups that are below me.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I think the biggest issue, like, with me, at least with tutors, like, I used to change tutors every couple of weeks. Like, I would never find anyone that I could actually sit down and say, okay, I like you, and I'm going to stick with you enough to actually teach me something. Because I do, like, the first couple sessions, they'd be like, well, you don't have a booklet, so what are you actually teaching me? Just kind of rocking up and giving me a couple questions. Do you even know what's going on? And, you know, or, like, you know, you don't have, like, someone with the proper qualifications. I had a tutor who came to me, and she was like, well, I haven't done my HC yet, but I've got a 99 ATAR. And I was like, how do you have a 99 ATAR if you're not done yet? And she was like, I have a 99 ATAR. And I'd be like, no, you don't. And then, like, you kind of find it after, and you're like, you didn't even band 6 as a subject, and you were coming, you know, charging me like $60 an hour to teach me maths. And you, like, really, what did you have? So it was kind of that where I'm like, okay, well, that's rubbish, and we need to sort of put that aside. So here you have people that, you know, have verified qualifications. They've done absolutely amazing. They know how to modify their teaching style, and they sort of have, like, the experience to fix up for any type of kid and sort of work from there and fix that, because it's so annoying. And then we make, on top of, like, the NESA curriculum, we make our own curriculum to sort of follow through and make sure that everything is sort of being taught properly, and that we're not really missing anything. And then we do free holiday classes as well for like the whole state. And, you know, we did the October ones, and we had like over 600 kids show up. And and when we did January ones as well, and we had like almost 1,000 kids that one, just online tuning in, listening to our tutors sort of just chat to them for an hour and a half about their class. And it's sort of that, it's sort of like, okay, yeah, I want to do this, but like, it's like, I want to sort of reach the whole HC cohort. And it's sort of not only if you come into the program, it's here are the programs that don't cost anything, and there's no commitment. Come and just let us help you out with this new syllabus, because it's hard enough. And then on top of it, they had, you know, Corona, and they had, you know, all these exams, and they had bomb threats yesterday. So it's like crazy. They had bomb threats during the HC legal exams. Yeah.
And I, because my sister's 18, about to turn 18. Oh, she just turned 18, sorry, and she's doing HSC right now. And the maths exam was really tough. Yeah. Like, from what I've heard.
I had a look at it. It was crazy. Like crazy. I did my maths exam when I was in year 11. I was 16. I think I was one of like the youngest people in the state to actually do it. And like my mum was always like, she's 16 and she's doing 2-unit maths. And it was kind of like, and like maths was like my worst subject. Like I spent year 7 to 9 failing maths. Like I was doing.
I didn't even do it. I didn't do it in year 11 and year 12 because it wasn't essential. So I just didn't do it. Yeah. Like only English and I can't remember. English and I think it might have been the only class you had to do.
Yeah, I think it still is, yeah.
Yeah, and so I love that, like, because I sucked at maths. I was the same as you.
Yeah, no, I sucked, and, like, I had a teacher in year 9, and she was like, why do you suck so much? And she kind of, like, sat with me, and she was like, this is it. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm actually getting it. And I remember, like, the first task after she sat with me, I got, like, 58 out of 60 in it. And I was like, oh, my God, I could be good at maths. And she was like, yeah, you could be good at maths. And then she sort of put me in to that, like, accelerated program where I'd finish early, and I band 6. And she was like, told you could do it. And Yeah, and so like that kind of happened, and then I was kind of like, okay, if I'm this good at math and I band 6, I was like, well, I'm gonna do extension 2, and she was kind of like, why are you doing extension 2? Like, you're going a bit far, and I was like, yep. I started year 12 with 14 units. I did 4 units of English, 4 units of maths, legal studies, economics, and business studies.
Far out, that's intense.
Yeah, and that was my first year 12 term. I'm like, I'm going to do all these subjects. The whole time I'm going to get an 8 over 95 with all these subjects. And I was like, I'm going to be fine. And the first term, like, I literally broke down. I was like, yeah, okay, 14 units is a bit crazy. And even though, like, at the end of the term, like, I think my worst rank that term was, like, 3rd. And it was an English advanced.
Yeah.
And so, like, I did good, but, like, the actual, like, stress that goes into that is sort of crazy. And I dropped down to 11 units.
It's funny. It's funny talking about this because you're talking about, like, we're talking right now about academics, how, like, you're quite academically smart.
Yeah.
And obviously, for the listeners, you've started a company called First Choice Tutoring. And that's a tutoring company, online tutoring company. And so, but you've started a business having no qualifications. And so you've kind of used, like, usually people are quite book smart, like school smart, and they're not business smart, or they're business smart and not school smart. So for me, like, I'm quite business smart, but I was not good at school. I'm not good at, like, all that still stuff. Yeah. But you've kind of just merged the two.
Well, I mean, I think they can work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Like, my dad had me playing, like, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The cash flow?
Yeah, the cash flow game.
I only discovered this, like, a month ago at a camp I was at.
Oh my God,
and I actually won the board game.
Yeah,
it's like $200 or something.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, I'll just describe it real quick for the listeners. So there's this game. I have no idea why not more people don't play it.
I know. I tried to get it into my economics curriculum at school. I was like, we should play this. Like, dedicated time for it. Like, we used to have budget watching, so we'd watch the budget. I was like, make a night where we play this game.
I'm doing that. We've booked a night where we're going to play it.
Oh my God,
it's,
that's so fun.
So it's called Cash Flow. It's like Monopoly on steroids. So it's like the aim of the game, at the beginning of the game, you get given a career, like a dentist or an airline. I think the airline pilot gets the highest paid wage.
Yeah.
And when I played, I was the janitor, which means he has a really low wage, which sounds bad on paper. But if you get that slip and it tells you how much that the janitor earns every month and how much he spends, so his expenses are quite low and he earns not much, whereas the airline pilot earns heaps of money but spends lots of money. And the goal of the game is to invest into assets that will generate enough passive income that's higher than your expenses. So to break that down, like, expenses is what you spend money on. So let's say you're spending $2,000 a month. If you can generate income from a home or property or assets that's more than $2,000, you now are financially free because you don't have to work, because that's going to be generating enough money for you to live in the background. That's the premise of the game, and then it gets way more complicated than that. But it's such a good way for kids, even me, who's like 22, when I played it even shifted my mindset about assets and stuff, and I was like, this is so good.
Yeah, I was playing that in year 8 and year 9.
Wow, yeah.
With my dad. And, like, I remember, like, because I've always been really sure about, like, what I wanted to do after school. And, like, he'd give me a card and I'd be like, that's not what I want to be. And, like, I'd swap it out for, like, the lawyer one. And I was like, this is what I'm going to be. So let's practice. And he was like, okay, like, practice. And I'd give him the dentist one. And I'd be like, so you be you and I'll be me. And we'll see who can win. And we used to play like that. And, like, we used to invite, like, my uncle to come in and we'd play all together and get, like, super competitive. And, like, and so I've always kind of been, like, around that, like, where he'd, like, give me a book, he'd be like, have you read this? And I'd be like, okay. And he'd be like, Napoleon Hill, have you read it? And I was like, I'm reading it, it's kind of getting there. And, like, and so I've always kind of been surrounded by that sort of, like, business, like business knowledge as well, on top of, like, you have to be good at school. And so it's kind of like, I've always had that bit of a balance where I get home and it's like, have you done your schoolwork? Yep. Okay, have you done this, to sort of learn more about how you can do more than just school. And so, yeah, I guess that helped in merging, but I definitely think they can work hand in hand, and they should. I see no reason why they shouldn't. I think
if you're really smart at school, don't go. You don't have to get a 9-to-5 job. You don't have to become a lawyer. You could start a business if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, I think people feel like, and I'd actually love to hear your opinion on this, because you work with so many students, especially high performing students, who get often, like, I know schools who, they'll average like 90 ATAR, and they'll be like private schools and they'll get really high ATARs, and as a result all the kids feel pressured to use those ATARs. So say they wanted to do primary school teaching, or say they wanted to do nutrition, which is like a 60 ATAR, they won't do it because they got a 90, and it'd be a waste. Yeah, and it's like, even if they're really interested in that subject, they'll be like, okay, well, I got a 95 ATAR, therefore I have to do either law, medicine, engineering, finance, economics, because they're the only degrees that require a 95 ATAR. Yeah. Do you see that a lot with your students?
I think it kind of depends on the student. I think we kind of have students that sort of, they have like these high goals because they want to do something, but I think I have to wait and see when they get their ATARs and sort of see how they go. But I think even like at school, when I was at school, that was kind of the idea. It was like, I'm not getting an ATAR like because this is a job I want to do. Like people say, I just don't want to be restricted. Like I want to be able to choose whatever I want to do. So I'm going to go for like, aim for that 99.95 so I can do like, whatever. But in reality, it was kind of like do whatever, medicine, law.
It's ironic, isn't it? I don't want to be restricted by my ATAR, but when you get a higher ATAR, you're now restricted to 5 degrees.
Yeah. And I know like in my school, like we had teachers who'd got like 98 ATARs and they'd come back to teach.
Which is like a 70 ATAR.
Yeah, and it's just because they loved it. Like like our economics teacher, he got like a 98 something. And he came back and he taught and he'd kind of tell us and he'd be like you literally, it doesn't matter. Like I used to sit in his office and be like, I want, this ATAR, and he'd be like, you can do what you want with this ATAR. I'd be like, that's the ATAR like I want though. And then he's like, well, when you get this ATAR, what are you going to do after that? And I was like, well, I don't get what you mean. But like I kind of see it now. It's kind of like if I had gotten anything higher, I would have felt bad for coming in to what I am doing now, which is a commerce degree. Like I would have been like, why am I wasting?
What you said there, and I can see that now, I think it's really important because I speak to a lot of people and they'll agree with me and they'll be like, oh yeah, I should have done that. And I'll speak to kids in high school and they just, the way they think is so linear. So like uni is the only option. Like it blows my mind. I'll talk to them sometimes. I'll be like I want to do marketing. I was just like, oh, I'm in marketing. I've managed $500,000 worth of Facebook ads for clients. I never did a degree. Like I know I can connect you with like 6 different marketing agencies who will give you an internship, or you can go work for them for free. And I'll literally serve them opportunities on a plate, and I'll be like, oh no,
I have to go to uni.
I have to go uni to get a degree. I was like, you don't need a degree for marketing. If you want to be a doctor, you need a degree. If you want to do marketing or business or something, we're both examples. We're both business owners. And, you dropped out of commerce, didn't you?
I'm still doing
commerce. Oh, you're still doing commerce, sorry. But you haven't graduated or anything.
No.
You're only like halfway through the first year.
Yeah.
Well, you just finished the first year.
Yeah, almost done.
And you're running a successful business.
Yeah.
And that's the point. It's like if you just work hard at what you're kind of going to, then you can figure out ways to, get around it.
I think, that's what I love like the most about like the whole business world is like your qualifications can come from experience. And I think when like you're 18, you kind of think, well, how am I going to get that experience? And it's sort of by doing it.
Yeah.
Which like you need to like do it. Like I know like I was talking to my friend and like we were catching up. We hadn't talked for years, and he's in marketing as well. And he's like in the second year of his marketing degree, and he's opened up like a whole marketing company, and he's doing like he's doing amazing. And it's kind of like, well, when I started, I didn't want to get a marketing degree. He email people and be like, can I shadow you?
Yeah. That's it.
And like eventually he ended up actually getting like going into the degree, but like that was how he kind of started. It was like, well, I'm gonna find people to talk to, I'm gonna get connections in the industry and work from there, which is basically what business is. And I think even at uni, like that's why everyone is so competitive, is because if you don't connect with people, like your degree means nothing if you don't have like a proper network. Like you literally like need to go out and talk to people. Like you like studying hard and getting like a high distinction in a commerce degree means nothing. Like
who cares?
You can walk out and they'll be like, okay, like so what? Like you need to really get involved. You need to meet people. You need to like shadow people. You need to talk to people, and you like that's sort of where business kind of gets.
And if someone came to me and said, hey, listen, I want to come. I've got a business degree. I want to come work for you. Like I'd be like, okay, great, you got a business degree. That's not, it's not a waste. I'd say, okay, that you've learned something. But like, I want to hear everything else you've done. If they just came to me and said, hey, I've got a marketing degree, I've got a business degree, can you employ me? And I've done nothing else. I've got no internships. I've got no work experience. I've got basically no connections in the industry. It's like, well, that's in 3 years, that's all you've done. Like 3 years is such a long time. Like what you can achieve in 3 years is crazy. And I'd hate to see someone just like choose a degree they're vaguely interested in, which was actually what we spoke about before. Yeah. The commerce and the business degree is a bit of a cop-out degree for something if you're not sure what you want to do. I'll be like, oh, I'm not sure what I want to do, but I need to go to uni because that's what we do. I'll just pick a business degree. And I know a lot of people have done a business or an economics degree and they've gone, okay, now, and they'll drop out a year later and then they'll choose what they're actually interested in. Yeah. Like, do you see that a lot with business?
Well, actually, one of my tutors, he started out like with a business degree and he was kind of like, well, I'm going to do commerce and then I'm going to transfer into comm law. And I was like, yeah, if you, and we were doing like the same classes, and I was so excited that, I had made a friend like through the business and had someone, and he actually transferred to psychology for this semester. He was like, what was the point of that? And I was like, yeah, like, and he kind of walked into like classes for this semester and he was like, it's so dry. Like, what are we really learning? And I was like, yeah, good point.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're running a business while studying business, commerce, and you're doing everything right. And that's why, you've seen me on TikTok. I talk a lot of crap about a business degree, and here you are with a commerce degree, which is that the same as a business degree?
Yeah, it's the usage name for it.
Yeah, but you're running a business, you're meeting people, you're growing your connections, you're doing some marketing stuff online, and you're coming on a podcast like this, like you're building a personal brand. It's like uni is just one aspect of what you're doing.
Yeah, which I think is really important, that like people kind of need to like understand that you just can't go into uni and think, okay, here's my degree, people are going to employ me, like I'm going to get so many job offers, which is sort of how you're kind of taught at school. It's kind of like, okay, once you graduate, TAFE uni, after you graduate you get a job, and that's it. And it's sort of like, no, that's like, I know when I chose commerce, it was kind of like, okay, well, I have this business, so I'm going to now do commerce, I'm going to learn something and then put it into practice, which so far hasn't happened. I don't think I've learned something that I can put solidly into practice
for your business.
And, for my business. Like, if anything, like I know, like I'm doing an accounting unit this semester, and I've never been more confused. And I've been doing accounting all year for my own business. Like I've been doing payroll.
I've had to do accounting as well. It was hard. It was like very confusing going from like sole trader to company and stuff. Now I just got an accountant who does it for me.
Yeah. Not yet. I'd been doing it all my, the whole past like 10 months I've been doing it on my own. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm going to walk into this unit. I've already done it. I'm going to blitz it. And like, I'm barely passing it because like it's completely, I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is not what I'm doing. Like, am I doing my accounting wrong this whole time?
Yeah. It's because commerce and business degrees are not for starting a business or for running a small business. It's more for like management roles within an existing like corporate or company. You can go in and be like a management sort of thing, and that's where a lot of people, there are entrepreneurial degrees and business degrees, and there's a reason they're different. Being an entrepreneur is very different to the business degree, because entrepreneurs you're an entrepreneur starting that business. Entrepreneur has to do accounting, has to do kind of everything at the beginning before you have the cash to outsource it. And so it's such a different thing, and because the world's becoming so, they're prioritizing the word entrepreneur to become very sexy and appealing, that a lot of people are probably going to a business degree because they think it's going to be like, oh yeah, that'll help me start a business, that'll open up so many doors for me. But
like, no, it's really like, I wish it worked that way. I wish it was that easy. And
it was that easy. That's the problem. 20 years ago it was that easy. But it's not now.
It's like, it's crazy because it's all demand, and everyone's kind of going in and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this degree and I'm going to do it. But it's sort of, it doesn't work like that.
Supply and demand.
And talking about that, like the way social media kind of like idealizes that word, like when you say, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, like it's like crazy. Like I remember like I'd seen posts where it's like, entrepreneurs wake up at 4 a.m. and they go to bed at 9, and I was like, oh, no, I don't. I was like, I'm waking up at 10 and I'm going to bed at like 12. And, I'm having the exact same day as a 4 to 9 person. It's just the same hours. Like, I don't understand, why do you have to wake up that early? And like, and I think when you look at it, like when you're 18, you can like, well, I can't wake up that early. Like, I want to go out and I want to have fun. I don't want to wake up at 4. So obviously,
because I was talking about this because, I wake up at like 5.
Yeah.
And the reason it works well for me is I do really good work in the morning. Literally comes 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I can't get any work done.
Wow, no.
Like at night. I hit that time and I'm just like, I just can't focus. I can't get any work done. So instead I'll go to bed early and wake up and do my work in the morning. But my mum is probably like you. She'll be working reports. So that's when she does her best work, at like 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. She'll be doing reports and that sort of stuff for her business at night. And so that's where it's like, you shouldn't judge someone based on
the time they wake up.
Yeah.
Like it's this, like it's such a like small thing, because it's not about that. It's like you have the same hours in your day. It's about how you use them.
The problem is where the problem comes in is people will be watching Netflix until 1 o'clock in the morning and then will sleep in until 10 or 11. It's like, that's actually not any better, because you're not doing anything productive and you're just kind of like, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But if we're talking about like productivity and knowing when you work best, if you're in work best at night or work best in the morning, is actually quite a valuable thing you can figure out for yourself.
Definitely. And it's because then you can capitalize on that. Like I know I tried, like I really did. Like I remember reading all those posts and I was like, well, if that's my position now, I'm going to wake up at 4 and I'm going to bed at 9. And I'd wake up at 4 and I'd come and do work. And my work obviously involves a lot of talking to people, and all the people I'm going to talk to are asleep.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, well, who am I going to talk to? Like I've just wasted, all this time. Now I'm going to be tired by like 9 o'clock. I'm going to have to go to sleep. And all the people, like I lose like 4 hours of talking to people time. Because I can't, talk to parents at 4 a.m. in the morning. Like, I don't know any parents that are up at 4 a.m. So it's kind of like that. And I think that's what we kind of need to realize, is that this whole, like, the way that social media kind of looks at that word entrepreneur is so, it's actually upsetting. It's sort of ruined it. because it's like at least when you're always on it and you kind of see like, you don't see like a struggle, like no one shares the struggle anymore. You kind of just see like all these celebrities and they're making so much money and they're doing all this stuff and you're like, okay, well I want to do that, and you kind of just think, well, this is what I have to do. But it's so hard. Like I know when I started I was kind of like, well, I'm gonna own a business and this is what I'm gonna do, like, and I'm just gonna tutor. And then my dad kind of gave me this big list and he was like, okay, well you need to get an ABN and you need to do this and you need to do this. He was like,
you need to get zero, you need to go to accounting, and you're gonna have contractors.
And he was like, you call this accountant, he'll help you out. And then like I remember like the first call I ever had with an accountant, like afterwards I was like, yeah, opening a business is not for me. Like I'm not gonna do this, like I obviously don't have the time and all this commitment. And my dad was like, well, plan it properly. And I kind of sat down and I was like, okay, well if I have this cost and this cost, and it was so like the initial like actual regulation cost is crazy, and then it kind of goes on like it's crazy, and you kind of don't think about it.
Something you see all the time, like everyone seems to think they work hard, right? Like every time I put out content, you know, on TikTok or any platform really, I put content where I'll be like, you know, you could be studying a full-time degree and you could have a full-time job, or you could be doing this on the side, and people will be like, clearly you haven't studied a business degree before, clearly you haven't done this before. It's like, you're not working that hard. Like, I understand everyone thinks they work hard. Here you are doing a business degree and running a business and doing other stuff on top of that. And I've got one of my closest friends, she's studying civil engineering, which is a very heavy degree, and she's got a full-time engineering job on top of that. And it's like, stop making excuses. If you want it, you want it. If you're not willing to put in the work for a degree, that's fine. But don't try to justify that you're working that hard when you've got like, you know, 3 lectures a week and like, you know, an assignment or something. It's like, you're going to get hurt when you enter the real world. And, you know, that's what you have to do every single day.
And I think like that's like, at least that you see like when you kind of talk to people, it's always kind of like, you can't just say I'm doing this degree. Like at least like in our environment, it's kind of like, okay, you're doing the degree, like what are you doing now? And it's kind of like, you have to have something else. Like I know people who, you know, they're at a degree and then they're like working full-time somewhere else, and that's what they kind of say. It's like, this is my degree and this is what I'm doing. And that's kind of the environment that you're kind of in when you do go like into a commerce degree, you said, which I guess is beneficial because your degree is good. Because your degree doesn't mean anything. You can say you're doing your degree there and they're like, okay, so what are you doing now? And you're kind of like, oh, like it's like, what internships are you doing right now? And it's like, oh, like I'm not doing anything. And you kind of have to be able to say, well, yeah, I've got this degree and I'm also doing this. Otherwise, like it doesn't mean anything.
And like, okay. Every single university student I've had come on the show, you know, because I do bash uni quite a bit, to be fair. But you know, people who listen to the show understand I don't hate uni. It's more like you need to be doing it for the right reasons, and you need to be getting involved in the uni, going to the societies, doing everything that you're doing, meeting people and all that sort of stuff. And every single uni guest I've had on the show does that. You know, I had a guy on it. He's like, me and my mate would get coffee with 3 people a week, and now they've just started a podcast where they for their university friends, and they bring on like founders and stuff and talk about podcasts, and then they're doing this on the side. Now he's about to start working an internship with Deloitte, and then the mates. It's like there's so much more that you can be doing, and just making sure you're doing that, because otherwise, if you listen to Joe's episode, which came out recently, he says he went to uni, did the exact opposite of what we're talking about. Did a psychology degree for 3 years.
I watched that one.
You listened to that? And he basically said, you know, 4-hour uni week, I lost 3 years of my life because I just did the bare minimum at uni. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't take in the content. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any friends at uni. And it's like, that's where it's so dangerous.
And I feel like that was like my biggest fear, like walking into uni. I was like, well, I can't just do it like just for the sake of it. Like I need to, like, you know, I need to meet people, and like I'm not the most like socially like out there person. I was kind of like, well, this is it. Like, you know, this is the degree I'm doing. I'm gonna have to meet people doing it, and I'm gonna like talk. There's no way I'm just gonna go to class and walk out. I couldn't let myself do it. And I know I walked into my first tutorial and I met like a big group of girls, and we kind of just stuck to each other. Now we're doing like the same classes this semester, and you know, and that's sort of how it works. And I'm like so thankful that it happened before uni shut down. And I was like actually able to make a group of friends where it's sort of with stay, and you know, like we're planning our group assignments now where, you know, you have people that you can trust for a group assignment, which is so important.
It's rare. I've never heard a uni student go, man, I enjoyed that group assignment, it went so smoothly and we got great marks.
Well, right now the group assignment I'm doing, it's going so smoothly.
There you go. I've never heard anyone say that. I always just hear, oh, this person hasn't even started, or like, and it's always everyone hates group assignments from what I see.
Like I hated like we had one last semester and I think I complained like every day. Like I think my friends were so annoyed by the end of the day, like, just shut up, we get it. And it was because I'm like a perfectionist, like I need things to be done like a very certain way, and if it's not done that way, I'm gonna get annoyed. And so like that kind of was not great in a group work where everyone's kind of got different standards, and I'm like, no, you need to do more here. And they're kind of like, nope, it's done. And I'm like, no, it's not done. You need
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
And then I just end up doing it myself. And luckily, like with this group, like we're all like on the same level of like perfectionist standards. So when we do something, we know it's going to be up to everyone's standards, which has been really good
Yeah.
for this sem.
No, that's so important because group assignments, I always see them, and you're in
Yeah.
if you're listening to this in high school, you're in for a shock when you start doing group assignments. From what I hear, I've never done one, but just from what I hear, it's
high
just
school
chaos.
group assignments were a lot easier because you're seeing them every day. Like you
Yeah.
see, like, you know, if someone didn't do their work, like you can straight confront them the next day and be like, why didn't you do this? And like you can't do that at uni. Like you can call them a million times and they will not answer, and you'll be like, well, why haven't you done your work? Like we all agreed we're going to get done by today, and they're like, oh well, you know, I had this assignment.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
whatever excuse.
and it's like, well, we're all in the same boat, you know, like, and that's why like uni group assignments not fun, but you know, on the rare occasion you get a good group, it's definitely.
But linking back to how we were talking about kind of jumping into a degree, like the classic example is people will just pick a business degree because they don't know what they want to do, which seems crazy to me because it's like, you know, well, there goes $30,000 and 3 years of your life because you don't know what you want to do. And I want to pull up the solution, which I think is the gap year solution, or just take some time off and, you know, defer for 6 months and just jump in 6 months later or something, because the gap year is going to give you time to figure out what you want to do. You know, you can go taste some different things. You can talk, you know, reach out to people, figure out if you want, you know, for marketing, reach out to marketing companies, see if you can shadow them for 2 weeks. Reach out to a physio company, shadow them for 2 weeks, or do whatever. And you can still work part-time jobs, save up some money, maybe travel. There's so many different things you could do. And just also, 100%. You've just done 13 years of schooling. Yeah. It's okay to take a break.
Yeah,
like
100%.
I remember when we were at graduation, and literally every single friend of mine in high school went straight into uni.
Yeah,
and I remember thinking, I literally remember thinking, this is probably cynical, as we were graduating high school before COVID, we had a fun graduation and everything, and everyone was like, no more exams. I was like, what are you guys talking about? You're going to have exams in like 4 months when you start uni, and you're going to have your first set of exams. Literally, there's no difference, and they're going to be even harder. And I was just like, it seems, obviously we're celebrating the graduation of high school, which is great. But I was just like, people kept saying, yeah, no more exams, final exams. It's not your final exams. You guys are going straight into uni. It's like, it just seemed crazy to me. Like, just take a break.
Yeah, I think, like, I've talked to, like, a lot of, like, people in uni, because obviously, like, at least when you do a commerce degree, it's kind of like, all right, you graduated last year, everyone's kind of in the same boat as you. And so you're in your first year, and, like, I remember, like, my first exam period, I was so over it. Like, I was already over uni exams, and it was the first semester, because I was still so burnt out, like, from my HSC exams. And, like, I was talking to my friends, and I was like, well, you know, how are you guys studying? And they're like, oh, no, we're still recovering from HC. So, you know, we're not really in the exam mode yet. And it was online exams, too. Like all open book, like, the lowest amount of stress possible. We're like, it's open book. We're good. We don't need to study for this. Like, you know, we studied so hard for our English exam last year. Like, we are done.
Then why did you go into uni? Why didn't you just take a break? If you don't want to study or work, just take a break.
And I was like, oh, well, like, we need to study. And, like, you know, like, and I know, like, now, like, you have to really create, like, a system. Because exams, like, I'm still honestly burnt out. Like, I kind of walk into an exam and I'm like, oh, God, not again. And, you need to be able to sort of, like, organize your time and sort of be able to say, okay, this is how I'm going to tackle this exam, because obviously, like, the way I tackled them in high school was not fun. And it's sort of like that. I think uni becomes such a big shock when you come out of high school, because it's completely different. Like, it is, like, the way, like, you take exams needs to change, because you're going to get done way faster, because the HC takes way more than you expect out of you. Like, energy-wise, it drains you.
And, like, just, you know, emotional, it takes a lot out of you. And, you know, as I said, if you're going to go straight into uni, it's like a 3-month break and you're back into uni.
Yeah.
It's, you know, 3 months is a long time, to be fair. Yeah, but it's still, like, you've been building up to this moment. You hit it, now you're on to the next thing. And something I hear a lot is people will justify, they'll be like, uni be different, because the difference is I don't enjoy a lot of subjects I do at high school, but at uni, I will enjoy what I'm doing.
I use that excuse.
Yeah, and everyone says that. And I'm just like, then why do uni people complain about their exams so much? It's like, I think within every commerce, whatever degree, there's going to be a lot of subjects within that you don't enjoy.
Definitely.
Even if you love being a doctor or love medicine, there's going to be lots of parts of that you don't enjoy. Yeah. And so it's like, understand, like, that's not really going to be the case. Yeah, you're not going to go into uni and just love sitting your exams, unlike high school.
Like, no one is ever going to love sitting exam. No one is going to walk into an exam and be like, yay, an exam, I love, like, it does not matter how much you love a subject. Like, you're not going to enjoy walking into an exam. And I think, like, everyone kind of uses that excuse where you're sort of so excited to get out of high school and get into uni, because you'll be studying something that you love and something you're passionate about, which is obviously important, and it definitely helps. I think it'd be a lot worse if 100%, if you hated it, and you sort of walk in and you're like, okay, well, you know, there'll be subjects that you absolutely absolutely love, but like you're not going to love walking into exams for them, and you're not going to love studying for them. You love learning it. Like I love, like during the semester, like I love sitting into my lectures and learning it, but the second I have to sit an exam for that subject, I'm like, oh.
And you're under the clock, and you've got to
and all that pressure, and you're like, oh my god, like it's not fun. Like you can love the content so much, like it doesn't mean anything when you walk into an exam, because like exams are not fun, then they never will be.
And that was my thought process of why I didn't, because I got into university. My mum made me apply just as like a backup. She's like, oh, well, I know you don't want to go, but just apply. And I got into Wollongong and a few other unis for film. And I was just like, the thought of having to do exams like so soon again, I was just like, no, like I hated the exams so much, especially because I would put in quite a bit of work and then I wouldn't get good results. And it was just so disheartening because I just was not good at looking at a book, or like, I don't know what it was. I can't really explain it.
Like you don't test well.
No, I don't test well. Yeah, that's it. My dad, he tests really well. And so he tried to kind of teach me. It's just like, don't read the words. It's, you know, when parents are like, just make sure you read the question. It's like, well, no shit. But it's true. You, like, there's some times where I wouldn't read the question right or something. And I'm like, how did I get marks there? And it's like, I just don't test well.
Yeah.
In that environment, I'll test well if you actually put me in a real scenario and I've got to actually do it. I'm under the pressure then. But like sitting on a piece of paper, writing with a pencil, when in real world, you're going to be using a computer.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, I think I don't test as well as I wish I did. I think a lot of my marks, like in HC, like my internal marks saved me. And it was because of, you know, like all those assessments where I was getting, you know, close to 100% in them. Yeah. And I could sit and say, yep, that was the reason. And but the second like you'd give me an exam and you give me a time limit, I'd be like, oh no, it's not happening. Like I cannot like physically do well. And I know like the HC, like when I actually got my actual HC marks back, I was like, well, those exams pulled me down. And
oh man, I reckon my economics pulled me down by at least 10 ATAR points.
Yeah, like, I think economics did for me too. At least a couple.
I'm not going to call out any teachers or anything, but like our economics class did really bad in year 12. I think something happened with our teacher, and it was just every class was just sitting highlighting from a textbook. And if you've read an economics textbook, it's so dry and so hard to read, especially when you're like 16, 17.
Yeah.
And so I learned nothing in basically year 12. And so, man, that exam screwed me over. And my marks came from my major works. I got like top 50 out of 50 and 50 out of 50 for like art.
Congrats.
For art. I got into Art Express for video, and then I built like a motorbike for automotive. And they were so much fun because that's what it was doing. It was just like actually creating it and actually doing the work, as opposed to hypothetically doing it in an exam. But yeah, that's what I learned. So it's interesting because I had a guest on yesterday, Dee, and she's the exact opposite of you. She's just like, I'll procrastinate until the cows come home, give me a time limit, give me a time frame, and I'll just zone in and I'll do it really well.
No way, No, I'm the person that like, you know, you get the assignment and like I start it that day. My first HC...
Oh, that's psychotic.
Yeah. My first HC English task, we had to write like a short story. And we got the notification like the third day of like year 12. And I sent a draft to my teacher like 12 hours later. And I was like, read my draft, please. And she was like, oh, are you done? And I was like, yeah, I need you to read my story so I can fix it because it's due in 8 weeks. And she was like, it's due in 8 weeks. And I was like, yeah, but it's done, so I need you to check it. And
then also, and all the other teachers will make it due in 8 weeks as well. So I want to get this done before the history gives me an exam on everything. I was like, so, you know, you're going to mark this? And she was like, oh my God. And she was like, and I'd send them like a million drafts. Like, I think I used to like play a game with my teachers. Like, I used to like give them a thing and they'd give me it back and I'd give them like 2 more. It's like, okay, there's 2 more essays for you to mark. And like during like trial period, they got so annoyed. They were like, you need to like stop. And I was like, no one else is sending anything. So, you know, I might as well send for everyone else. Like, and like that worked for me, like being able like to write essays, and I enjoyed that. But the second I had to like put them in a time limit and I had to like write down, I was like, oh. See, isn't it interesting how different humans are, and like how the school system's really not? It's really
doesn't accommodate.
It's accommodated to one type of person who you know does well on assignments and does well on exams, and even just listening to us talk, it's like, wow, us two, we're so different in the way we learn and the way we sit exams and the way we do assignments and stuff, and it's just like it's so one pathway, one linear direction for that specific person. And they say the system was designed in like the 1800s to pump out factory workers, which is in the intro of my show. I talk about how like they created a system because they needed more factory workers and they needed people to follow the rules, clock in on time, clock out when they need to go to the toilet, raise your hand, and that sort of stuff. And that's kind of like the system that they've put us into, which is why, like, I mean, we're both in the education sector. Outside of school, we're doing our own education. Because you mentioned you've created like a curriculum or something for your students. Yeah. What's that about?
So we just we basically take like the NESO curriculum and like we obviously teach what we need to go over, but we sort of make sure that it's completely like 100% relevant. So like I know like at school like you kind of do like you spend like 10 weeks on one topic, and like we try to do that same topic in 5 weeks. And it's sort of like, okay, there's things that, you know, the school kind of goes over, which is just so unnecessary just as a whole.
My God,
like
so much fluff.
Like so much fluff. It's actually not funny. And I know like I have parents come up to me and they're like, well, I want my kid to be accelerated. And I said, yeah, don't worry. Like we will accelerate him so much, because the school is going to spend so much time. Like I think like for maths, we spent like 2 weeks on learning how to differentiate. And I was like, it's one formula. You just learn the formula and you're set. You can learn it in half an hour. Like I think I got my kids to perfect it last week.
I could probably Google it on my phone and sit down and learn it in like, you know, an hour or something. You can
watch a 10-minute YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly.
And just sit like... it's not something you need to spend 2 weeks on. And I feel like they don't spend time on things that need to be spent time on. So we just kind of like rearrange the times and make sure that how we're teaching is, you know, going to help better for the HC. It's sort of not to like obviously the aim is to prepare you for your upcoming tasks, but we sort of want to long run it. We want to prepare you for trials, HC, and even like beyond. Like I know, like I had my kids send uni questions like when they were coming in, and like early entry things. I'm like, yeah, I'm here for you. Like if you need that stuff. Like it's not just about, I think like tutoring can't just be about academics anymore. I think it's not like, no one is going to pay money just to get academics. Like teachers will put in time if you properly ask them, or you ask them for more work. I think like you don't like at least at my school we really didn't need tutoring, because if I went to my teacher, she'd be like, all right, come see me at lunch, and she'd sit with me.
Teachers are teachers for a reason. They want to help kids.
Exactly. And like she's getting paid to help me already. Like it's a part of like the school system. But I think the school system itself is kind of wrecked, at least. Like I know like if I use like me in primary school, like we used to get so much homework, like it was crazy. And like my sister's in year 4 now, and she gets nothing. Like she comes home and I'm like, have you done your homework? And she's like, oh, the teacher didn't give me anything. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what did you learn at school today? And she's like, oh, I don't know, we did maths. And I was like, well, what did you do? And like it's like there's nothing. Like they've kind of changed it in a way where it's just not going to prepare them for later. And
because I'm not a big fan of homework, but I guess the issue with, because what you just said, and it originally sounds good to me. I'm like, I don't think we need heaps of homework in primary school, but the reason we need it is because when we go into high school, if you had no homework in all primary school and then you enter high school and you're getting homework, you're like, holy crap, what do? I can't just go home. So you know, we were talking, I don't talk about primary school. I barely even talk about high school. I mainly just talk about year 11 and year 12. That's kind of my demographic and what I like to talk about. Yeah. But we were talking about primary school, and I think the dangerous thing about primary school is you get one teacher for the year. And I've seen my brother, for example, hated his year 5 teacher. It changed his life for the worse. My mum said that. She's just like, you know, it really affected him in those, he's fine now, but it really affected him in those like year 5, year 6 phase, because if you get one teacher and you don't like them, you're stuck with them for a year. And if they're not good at teaching, or then at least in high school, you get one teacher, it's just for one class, and you can kind of be like, oh, all right, well, I can do chemistry on the side. I can get a tutor like you for chemistry specifically if I'm struggling.
I had a really crappy English teacher, like, can't remember what year. And I used to go to my like year 7 English teacher, and I used to just ask her questions. Yeah. And like I used to be like, okay, this is the text we're doing, and these are my questions, and I just used to ask her for high school, and that helped. Like my little sister, she had she's had like the worst go of primary school teachers, and like the last like 3 years, she's just had like really crappy way.
And that's my point about how dangerous it is.
And it is. And so she's like on top of it, like with no homework, like she needs to, like my sister's the person that needs to keep doing something, or she's gonna forget it like the next day. And so there's no reinforcement. And like even in high school now, like I look at my other sister, she's coming into like year 10, year 11 now, and there's no like actual like reinforcement of it. Like I think obviously excessive homework is a lot. My geography teacher used to make us like summarize the whole chapters before the class and then do the review question, and that was crazy.
We had to do it for economics. It was so annoying. Like at the end of the chapters for economics, is like those questions, and you're like, she wasn't very strict in it, but it was just like they're so literally the question is, and this is a big part of what's wrong with school, right? So in economics, you get these questions at the end and be like, all right, here's a question. The question is answered in the previous 5 pages in the textbook. You don't remember what it was because you weren't paying attention, and it's hard to focus on. All you do is scroll through until you can find it and basically just summarize what it says, reword it, or copy and paste it, and that's your answer. We had the digital
textbook. I used to Command F and just search the name, the key term, and copy paste. I don't think I ever actually put effort into those questions.
It's not going into your brain
because it's really like they were so useless, and they were so like it would be like definitions, or like something like you don't even need like really to know, or something like one sentence in that whole like chapter, and it's like, well, will I need that? Probably not. Like
and it breaks my heart because I think economics is so important, because I think we should be doing economics as a standard subject in school, and it should
I
be
agree.
basic economics, just understanding how the world works, supply and demand,
Yeah.
Different types of communism and capitalist societies, understanding those, understanding a little bit of economic history and stuff. It doesn't have to be complicated ideas. But in year 11, when our teacher was really good, it was so fascinating. We learned like opportunity costs, we learned the different tax laws. It was like, we learned when the budget came out, we kind of analyzed the budget, and it was interesting. And then year 12 was just reading from a textbook, and it was the worst thing.
Yeah, my economics experience was really similar, and it was awful. Like, wow, yeah, like I used to love like year 11 economics. It was all like theoretical, and I used to sit down and I used to be like fascinated, and I used to really try to apply, and I'd be like, oh, so with this, that's how that applies, and she'd be like, yeah. And then I sort of got into year 12 where it actually did get practical, and I was like, oh god, we're just gonna look at these slides, and then we're gonna do these questions. And
because we had a sub come in, and he was a new teacher, and I learned more in that one class than I did in my whole year 12. He was so engaging, such a good teacher, and it's like, that was a real pivoting point for, it's like, wow, this is how much one teacher can make a difference in a kid's life. And I know because James, who I had on episode 30, episode 30, which was all about how to crush it at university. He also has a tutoring company. He's really cool, and he had him as his economic teachers for year 11 and 12, and like topped the state, or like he didn't top the state, but he did like high, top, 2% sort of thing, because it was all from that teacher. And he would go see their teacher like every lunch.
Yeah,
and
I think
it's just like,
teachers are actually like the most important thing. Like I think a good teacher can actually change like everything. I know like,
and a bad teacher can change everything.
Oh my god, a bad teacher, like I know, like at least for me, my learning was very, very dependent on teacher. Like I had crappy math teachers like all early high school, and I was barely passing. I had one good teacher, and it clicked, and I was like, well, I'm not bad at maths. I just didn't have a teacher who knew how to accommodate to explain maths to me. And the same works for English. Like, like my year 12 year, my English teacher was great, but then like there was another English teacher, and the way he'd explain things was like, wow, like he'd like inspire passion in explaining. It wasn't just about the content. And I was like, okay, like you're actually making me love English more than I did. Yeah. And then, sort of it translated. And that's kind of like the goal, at least at FCT, is like that we want to sort of instill passion instead of knowledge. Like obviously we need to make sure you know the syllabus, but we want to make sure that you are enjoying it. Like
the thing about knowledge is, knowledge is becoming so less and less important in today's world, because we have knowledge on our phone. Everything is there. That's knowledge. When we talk about intelligence and like being smart, that can't be on your phone. Like memorizing the dates of World War II, when will I ever need to know that, for starters? And secondly, I can just Google it. It's good. It's important to know the rough dates. Like I know it started in like 1939, and that's good, important to know. But like that micro detail where we can just get the information wherever we need. It's like, it's not as important. We need to be teaching them rote, practical life skills like leadership and communication, people skills. I think people skills is so important. As I'm sure you've probably seen, like you're not going to hire a tutor if they have bad people skills, because it's going to be a bad experience for students.
I remember when I was doing like interviews, like I'd never done interviews in my life, and all I had, like I'd never even been in an interview. Like when I started my company, I'd never even had a job, so I'd never like been interviewed, and I had no idea what was going on. And all I had was like watching my mom do hers for my dad, and I was like, okay, like I could do that. Like, and I just literally replicated her style. Like she recorded me, and she was like showing everyone. She's like, she does interviews like me. What? And I'd be like, oh god. And it was just kind of that. And like I'd call someone, and they'd be like yelling into the phone, and I'd be like, are you gonna like yell at the kids? Like you're yelling at me, and I'm just asking you like questions. And it was like, and I think like we sort of need to learn like the way, like articulation and sort of expressing ourselves to others is so important. And being able to sort of have solid communication is so, like, it's so important. And
for every job it's important. Like my mum is an occupational therapist. She has a business, so she employs OTs, and they go into people's homes and assess their homes, and like they're going into your home. They need to have good people skills. They can't just be an OT. If they're an OT and they're qualified, they can do a great job. But if they go in and they're awkward and they don't say hello and they're not good with people skills, like the client's going to drop you because they just don't have a good experience, and they don't want that person coming into their home. That's just one example. You could pick almost any industry and you need people skills. There's very few jobs where you don't, like, I don't need my heart surgeon to have people skills, because I just want him to make sure he saves my life. He's operating on my heart or my brain or something. They don't need to have good people skills. They can be arseholes.
I mean, even then, like, you kind of want him to come in like after and
ideally,
say, like, are you okay? Like, how do you feel after? Like you still want people skills. Like, ideally, like, you'd need it for everything.
Yeah, ideally. But I mean, that situation is kind of like, well, if you're an arsehole,
I'm knocked out, I don't care.
Yeah. Just save my life.
Yeah.
But point is, we need to be learning, like, I don't know what is people skills. It's like just being able to talk, have good energy, have a good conversation. You're able to make them feel comfortable, make them feel welcomed. I think awkward is a big one. You mentioned like social awkwardness. You might have struggled with that a little bit. Like how do you navigate that?
Honestly, I just put myself in situations where I feel awkward.
Great. Great.
And then I'm like, all right, like go ahead, and it's that kind of stuff where it's like I know, like when I was in high school, I used to hate meeting new people. Like I used to like my mom would be like, meet this person, I'd be like, oh no thanks, I'm okay, I'll stay home. And like I know, like my mom like became so disconnected with her friends because like I'd never go to people's houses with her, and I'd be like, I don't want to talk to that person, like I'm okay. And like it sucked. Now like I now feel it now because I'm like, well now like I have no friends, who do I talk to? I missed out on meeting all those cool people. I missed out on meeting like all these people, and now I look where all these people are and I'm like, well they would have been good connections, so now I'm a bit of a stupid for not like talking to people. And I think like the best thing you can do like to really get people skills is to put yourself in situations where they can develop. Like obviously the first couple times you talk to people, it's going to be awkward and you're going to be like, oh, I don't know what to say.
Especially if you don't have those skills.
Yeah, but like again, it's exactly like starting a business. You can only learn those skills by putting yourself in them and sort of learning through experience. It's really the only way.
I mean, you reached out to me about, one of your students, saw me on TikTok or something, and then I don't know what happened, and they told you, and then you reached out to me, and now here you are, we're having a chat.
Yeah.
And that's because you put yourself in that situation. Mm-hmm. Like otherwise you wouldn't be on the podcast if you didn't actively reach out and stuff. And so that's a great example of what you just said. Like you're living it.
Yeah, I think 100%. Like we need to learn, like that quote, like your net worth is your network. Yeah. And I think like you're not gonna meet people if you don't like put yourself out there. Like you can't sit down like and expect people to come to you. Like you need to be able to go to people and say, hi, like this is me, this is what I do. Let's be friends. And like that's sort of how it works. And you can't expect people to come to you. It does not matter what you're doing or how great you are. You need to be able to sort of go out and meet people and take like the initiative to talk to people as well, which I think a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I know when I talk to people, they're kind of like, well, this is what I do, and I'm great. People will come to me, and I'm like, well, I mean, why would they come to you when this person is not as great as you, but, they'll have a great conversation with. And I think we're going to prioritize that great human interaction over, what you're doing. Cause
do you think, I just had this thought, because I think, it's kind of like in the dating world as well. You'll meet guys and you'll meet girls, and it's just like, I can't meet anyone. Well, how many people have you asked out? No one. Well, it's like, well, what do you expect? You expect they're just going to come running to you? And if you're very attractive, sure, you probably got lots of guys coming to you. But it's like in the business world, your looks aren't going to get you. They might help, but they're not going to get you as far as they would in the dating world. Yeah. And it's like, it's the same analogy. You've just got to think of it like that. Like if you're just sitting there, because I get questions all the time when I put out content about networking, because it's so important, in my opinion. And I'll be like, well, how do I grow a network? And it's just like, start getting out there.
Just email people.
DM people on Instagram, email people, ask to go to coffee. A good one, try and have 3 coffees, go have lunch with someone, get 3 coffees a week. Or start with 1 if you can't.
Yeah.
And I said it before, like when you meet that one person, you're not just meeting that one person, you're meeting all the connections they have as well.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like it's so important, because if you're not going to reach out to people, you're not going to have a network. And then when you actually do like get out of uni, like you're going to be stuck with your degree, and it's really not worth anything if you don't know people.
And you're going to apply at seek.com for like 4 jobs, and you're going to get no response, and then you're going to feel like you're inadequate, and you're going to go, why can't I get a job? It's like, because you've done the bare minimum. Yeah. Like you haven't put yourself out there. I got good marks. Yeah, that's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Like that's the standard.
Yeah, everyone is paying for the same education. Yeah. It's sort of expected.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, is to sort of like, when you go to uni, it's not like high school where you sort of study hard, you get good grades, and then you get something, which I think works. I think it's sort of the way that we're taught at school. It's that, if you study and you get good grades, like you're set, you're good. Like you get an award at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You're fine. That good for you. And it's like, well, okay. Like at least at my school, extracurriculars weren't like...
Yeah, we had
they
some,
weren't like promoted. Yeah, like we had a couple. Like we had like a sport ones, but like even then, like that was about it. And it was kind of
private or public?
Private.
Yeah, okay, so we were public, so we had even less. We had like none. I actually can't think of any curriculum activities we had.
Like there's nothing that is actually like put out to sort of celebrate other kids who aren't always academically inclined.
That was me. So I mentioned I got 50 out of 50 for my art project. So I did a video. That was my major work. So you have 2 years in art. You spend the first year doing theory, and then you plan out your major work. And then the final year, so fun. You just go in class and you just work on your project.
Yeah.
So I did a video, which my school had nothing set up for video. I had to do my own camera. I had to use my own cameras, my own equipment. My teacher knew nothing about video. And, and I got like top of the state, like not top of the state, but like, in the top, because I got into Art Express and got 50 at top marks. I won like the Canon Award or something. Yeah. And that was such an achievement for me, so much more important than an ATAR mark or something, because it was something I'm passionate about, film.
Yeah, exactly.
And my parents were really proud, and they were really annoyed because I got no recognition at graduation. Like no one even mentioned it. They were just celebrating the people who got top in maths, top in English, even though I had like come top in the state and like high marks for this project I'd worked on for like, I spent so long on that. Like I'm probably, you're probably looking at over 100 hours on that project.
I think that's what major works is.
Oh
like,
my
they're
God.
crazy. And there's no recognition for them at schools. Like there's really, if there was no Art Express, like art would never be spoken about.
If I didn't get into Art Express, that would have been pretty, I wasn't expecting to get in, and so the funny thing was, what happens when art is you give your major works in and they hand it in and your teachers give you a mark. That mark doesn't mean anything. It's just what they think of your project. And then it gets sent off to that the government, and there's like the art teachers who mark them all. So I got like a 33 out of 50 from my teachers. And I went, that's crap. And then, 2 weeks later when I got my proper marks, it was, 50 out of 50. And I went, okay. And so like that 38 was so painful, and something I'd put like hundreds of hours in versus some kid who's, put in, tens of hours in math and is naturally good at it. And now they get all this recognition, and, they get the ducks or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, why are we softening people's creativity and focusing, prioritizing academics over everything?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there needs to be a proper balance, because I think being academically inclined is only half of it. Like you'll get out of school and you can do great, but you need to have like other things, and you sort of need to learn how to balance it. And like I think that's why I always tell like my kids when they're sort of like, well, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm like, no, stay there, because like you need to know how to balance a job with school. Yeah. And it's 100% possible to have a job and get a 998 ATAR. It's just time management, and you just need to learn how to do it. And
you're going to be stronger when you enter uni, and you do that. There's kids, I know kids who have parents who just give them like a wage essentially every single week, and that's like their pocket money.
Yeah, that's how I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's such an advantage, because it means you've now got an extra 10 hours a week versus someone who's got to work a part-time job. And so you can either look at that and go, oh, that sucks. And it does suck if you have to work. But then I would argue, because you're working, you've got that work ethic and you're developing those skills. So when you enter the real world, you're going to be better off than this person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I think like the way I kind of saw it is like, all right, like I'd get, whatever I'd get every week. And it was sort of like, okay, well, I have those 10 extra hours. I'm going to do something productive.
And you did, yeah.
Those. And that was kind of the idea. It was like I'm not going to like give them, like they're not there to waste. They're not Netflix hours. Like,
which is what a lot of people do though.
Yeah. I mean, I wish like I could spend that time in Netflix. Like my dad always says I spend so much time. But like the only time I ever like watch something is like when I'm going to bed, and I kind of like fall asleep on it anyway. And I wake up, I'm like, okay, I watched it. Like, do I remember it? No, but like, and like that was kind of it. And like that's how it worked in my high school life as well. It was just all about like that time management and saying, okay, like today I'm doing, English, maths, and then I'm giving myself 2 hours to read a book or do this or do something, and then that sort of helped. And I think
is another skill, time management, you mentioned,
which no one knows how to do. And
I did an entire episode on it actually.
Yeah.
I had a time management expert come in, and we basically spoke about time management for younger people and how to manage HSC, and that's where I learned about the hours, knowing when you're productive and doing your best work when you're productive. So for you it might be 10 o'clock at night, for me it might be 7 o'clock in the morning, just figuring out you're different. And she talks about lots of other concepts, but time management will change your life, and that's a skill we should be learning.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like I know when I talk to my students and like, I don't have time to do this, I'm like, trust me, you have time. You just need to make it. Like, that hour that you're spending on the train to school, sit down, get your laptop out and use it. Like, it's better than what are you going to sit and do on there? Like
scroll through TikTok.
Yeah. Like you're better off using it to your advantage. And like obviously breaks are important too, but I think it's like really important. Like I schedule breaks. Like I literally schedule like half an hour. I'm like, okay, this is where I will, I don't know, watch an episode of something, or take my break or eat lunch. And I think that's important, is that you can't just say I'm going to take a break. Is the best thing about time management is to be like really, really specific. Like I plan like I'm a bit crazy. Like I plan my months, I plan my weeks, I plan my days like to the minute. Like I know what I'm doing like every minute, and I know like exactly like I don't let like time slip away. Yeah. Because it is like that asset is so important.
It's the most valuable asset.
It is actually the most valuable thing ever, and I think when you're my age, you don't realize it, and you kind of just think, oh well, you know, this is the time where I can sort of watch Netflix. But like if you work now, you can watch Netflix when you're older, and you know, you can watch Netflix, I don't know, on the beach.
And we're not saying never watch Netflix
Yeah.
or never go out and party.
Oh, definitely, it's important.
You
to
can
go
still
out.
do. You can still do all of that.
Yeah.
You just don't have to get smashed Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yeah,
and then wipe out your entire
exactly.
weekend. You can still go out and party, have a great time, and because what
Exactly.
you mentioned there is I'm so passionate about is I don't have enough time is the excuse. I think it's the
Yeah.
biggest cop out excuse.
It's so,
I never ever use that excuse because it's like I don't have enough time. Very, very rarely is that a real excuse. Like maybe
Yeah.
if Elon Musk told me he doesn't have time, I'd be like, okay, that's fair enough.
Okay.
Or like some, you know, of those big, you know, businessmen or
Yeah.
businesswomen and stuff. But like, especially like a uni student or like my mates or, you know, even if I say I don't have time, well, let's see. I woke up at, you know, 8 o'clock this morning. I could have just woke up at 7 and got what I needed to get done then. I went to bed at this time. I watched Netflix here. I played PlayStation here. Oh, I ate lunch for an hour and a half here. It's like,
You
well,
spent an hour on TikTok without even realizing
yeah,
it was an hour. Like,
let's go look at your Apple
like,
screen analytics
yeah,
and see
like-
if you have enough time.
like it's actually crazy. Like I think like apps like Instagram and TikTok take away so much time, and you kind of like I kind of sit like I stopped using TikTok because like it got
Oh my
really
God.
crazy. It got so crazy where
I
I'd
love
sit,
TikTok, but it's
but it's so, you
Yeah.
know, I'd sit and I'd be like, oh, I'll just watch a couple videos, and a couple videos would be like 3 hours.
yeah.
And I'd be like, well, I could have, you know, like done something in those 3 hours that was actually productive.
Mm.
Then I'd go to bed and I like wouldn't have done my goals, and like I'd be annoyed.
Mm.
And
But-
then it makes more work later.
And again, like if you've scheduled a break and you're going to go on TikTok for 20 minutes during that break, that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just don't letting it, because for me it's dangerous because I, you know, half my job I feel like is on TikTok. 'Cause it's
Yeah.
where my biggest audience is. So I'll be like, all right, I've got to schedule 5 videos this morning. I'll start scheduling them and then I'll just like, oh, what's this? And I'm bang, I'm
Yeah.
gone. I'm down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it's just so. And Instagram is the same because I'm in my DMs heaps with people nowadays, like setting up meetings and stuff through the DMs, and it's
Yeah.
like I'll jump on, just respond to some people, and then bang, I'm scrolling, or bang, I'm doing this or
Yeah.
whatever, and it's just I've spoke about this on lots of episodes, technology and everything.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. You make sure that you're in control of technology and it's not in
Yeah.
control of you.
Exactly, because the amount of time that you sort of like take out there is crazy, and it needs to be like you need to control it. Like I know, like with my screen time, I limit the amount of time I go
Yeah,
on
so do I.
Instagram, and I'm like,
So
yeah,
do I.
okay. Any more than this time is just not acceptable. And I mean, I have to use it for work, so
So
it's
do
like,
I. like this is screen time right now on my phone.
Yeah.
That's going to count
It's
as like an
gonna go
hour.
crazy,
It's
yeah.
going to trigger like an hour of screen time. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that wasn't really screen time. But what I do is because iOS, whatever we're up to, has the widgets. I put my screen time widget on my homepage. So every time I open my phone,
yeah,
it's
mine
in my
too.
face. And I'm like,
I
okay,
see it, and I'm like,
I've spent 20 minutes.
I'm
All
like,
right,
yeah.
that's not good.
and I'm like, crap, I spent 7 hours on my phone today. Like,
Yeah. 7 hours?
yeah.
Oh, man, I'm
like,
not that bad.
Oh no, I'm really bad.
Holy
Like,
crap.
if I don't like control myself, I can get that bad. Like,
Wow.
like I think I've spent 10 hours on my phone once.
Wow.
And like that's a whole day. Like
That's like
that's
more than a working day.
yeah. Like it's so weird. Like
Mm.
it's not right. You shouldn't be spending that much time on your phone. Like
I get annoyed if I do over 2.
2 hours.
If I do over 2, that I'll be like, it's not ideal. I mean, I value it by social time, but even then, like if I'm scheduling TikToks, that's work time, not social time.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit vague. But yeah, if I'm over 2, I try to keep it under 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's phone checks as well. Like it can tell you how many times you've checked your phone, which is that
Yeah.
habit. And people will be doing like 150 times a day.
I think I do.
Yeah,
Like,
Probably.
'cause I think it's just habit. Like
it
just
is
to check it. Like
100% habit. It's dangerous. But
yeah.
anyway, that's the technology talk. That
Yeah.
I always end up on that tangent in an episode. But before we wrap up, I ask every guest this question, and it's just, what would your number one piece of advice be, I guess, for yourself, for the younger generation?
For me.
Yeah.
I think I think something that I was actually really thinking about when like this was scheduled. It's like when I talk to 18-year-olds, like they have like the best ideas. Like when it's like, well, if you could start a business, what would you do? And they have like the craziest ideas, and I'm like, well, why don't you do it? And they're kind of like, well, you know, I don't want people to see me fail, or you know, I don't want to be seen like starting this small, or I don't have the money, and it's like all these excuses that we kind of make up, and it's kind of like, well, stop making excuses. Like if you do it, and I mean, like, look, if you fail, like I started my first business, I think I was 15, and it failed like a year later, and I was like devastated after. But I mean, like if I didn't fail then, this one would not have been.
We say there is no
great.
failing. There's only winning.
And learning.
Yeah, winning and learning.
Yeah. Exactly.
And failing's important. Like I'm the same. I've failed multiple things.
Yeah.
This podcast is probably the first thing that I've consistently done and is going well.
Yeah.
Everything else that I've tried up until now has failed.
Yeah, and I think like it's sort of really important to sort of learn that, you know, everyone fails. Like trust me, like Steve Jobs failed before Apple happened, and the problem is that we don't see those failures, and no one talks about them, and you only kind of see the success, and you think, well, that's how they became, but no one started off as a success. It doesn't happen. So it's kind of that, like, put yourself out there, actually do it, and if you fail, so what? Because you'll be better next time.
Yeah, amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Just before we sign off, where can people find you if they want to get tutoring from you guys in your company? Like, what's the best place to go to get in contact?
Probably Instagram. It's at First Choice Tutoring with an underscore after that.
That's at First Choice Tutoring for your company. And if they want to reach out to you, what's your Instagram there?
It's just Meerae Mulla.
Yeah, and that'll all be links in the description of this episode. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for this episode of the Driven Young podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. That means the world to me. And if you got some value out of it, please shoot me a message on Instagram or reach out to me. Or I would love for you to leave a rating or review on this podcast. So make sure you are subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.